Hello.
Hi Graham, how are you doing?
I'm all right.
Good,
Thanks
good.
for coming. This is
My
Nick
pleasure.
Butt from water retailer U Water, part of the U
The
Energy
U
Group.
Yeah, the U Group.
Yeah, the U Group.
Yeah.
We're talking about the water industry, water retail market, where we are now, where we're going, if we're going anywhere. We've known each other how long? Probably
20 years, perhaps a bit longer.
20 years. So that's
90s, early 2000s.
20 years. So that's 40, nearly 50 years combined experience.
Yeah.
So we're icons of the water industry.
Exactly. Old wizened wizards.
Yeah, great. How things in the water retail market? Because you've been with U Water how long now?
I've been with about coming up for a year now. U Water, they've had their water retail license since beginning of the year. That's to complement their U Energy services. That's delivering energy services to their core business sector. That's SMEs and mid-corporate customers. But they've established their water retail company just to complement the services they provide and to ensure that they can offer a multi-utility provision. So we've had that established, effectively up and running since January, acquiring new customers since then.
And we sent you stuff to price?
Oh yes, yeah. Hopefully we are pretty competitive and we're winning those customers.
Yeah.
So we've got a fully fledged retail organisation now in place alongside all of the other retailers out there. But alongside that, we offer effectively a consultancy service. It sells a number of what's called in the market the value-added services. So it's helping out our customers, our direct retail customers, but also ones that aren't directly our retail customers, a series of consultancy services to help them manage water on site in terms of controlling water consumption, ensuring water hygiene, water quality is maintained, and also looking at much bigger aspects of their water use and to help them develop their company to ensure that they're meeting environmental compliance issues, consents as well. And also to help them grow when they require additional amounts of water or have to discharge larger amounts of effluent, and we assist them with enlarging water treatment plants and wastewater treatment.
So would you say that water retail companies that do that probably got the edge over just a water retailer that does nothing at all other than water retail? Possibly.
They may well see that those kind of services are going to deliver more revenue, more margin than just simply providing a water retail service. I think it's quite ambitious for a lot of other retailers out there who just provide a retail service and nothing else, that they're going to make a long-term business out of it, because the margins are very, very, very tight out there. It's estimated about 8% of a water bill is the retail margin.
That's in England.
Sorry, that's just in England and Wales, I think it is, but principally England. So if a customer is looking for a competitive quote, there's not a lot of margin for retailers to provide something that reduces their water charges significantly. We're only talking of a couple of percentage. So it's quite a cutthroat business and not a lot of margin to play with. And as we've seen recently, one retailer's gone out of business.
Yeah, I think there's others to follow as well on the grapevine. One in particular, undercapitalised, thought they make millions, and they're going into debt, which is a shame because people start businesses with high hopes, but little knowledge and little expertise is kind of not the thing for the water industry. So would you say then water retailers that do added value services like you guys do have got the edge commercially? So it isn't all about price, it's all about a holistic service as opposed to just there's your price, sign it or not.
Yeah, well, we view the customer that we can give them a better deal than anyone else out there, but we also can drill into the way that they use their water, whether it's in very simplistic fashion for employee use, but also more complex process use, that we can help them reduce that water demand and cut back their water charges to a much higher percentage than just doing a retail switch. And I think if there's a number I think retailers, if they can understand that is another way of delivering savings to their customers and deliver an effective service through that way, that's going to probably deliver a better strategic business than just the retail business itself.
Yeah, from where I'm sat, I mean, since deregulation, the first 6 to 9 months was quite quiet, and then it's gone nuts. Because we thought that all the water retailers had set up their businesses, with doing water consultants and everything. But you and I know from all the years we've been doing this, it ain't that easy. So there aren't many of us about with the knowledge and expertise to really drill down on the things that matter, as opposed to just a cursory sticking a restrictor into a tap and a plastic bag into a cistern, and that's going to do the whole lot. Whereas you and I know there's a lot more to it than that, engineering and consultancy services, which a lot of these retailers will struggle to apply to their customers. And I don't think there's an awful lot of them. They're paying lip service to it, but they're not actually being proactive in the way that I expected them to be, which because they're there to sell water at the end of the day. But there's a lot of environmental pressure. So I think moving forward into the future, I think it's going to have to be an integral part of the water strategy for water retailers. Would you sort of concur with that? Would you?
Yeah, well, if you look over the last few decades where water efficiency has been pushed in the water industry, there's always been this focus on reducing domestic water use. But when it came to the commercial customers, non-household customers, the same ways of reducing water use was just applied to, say, the employees' demand, the domestic side of non-household customers. And that's relatively easy to provide. It's just simple washroom facilities, asset installations. I think what will be called upon more and more in the future is to help those kind of customers who use water in more complex ways, and to deliver those kind of water efficiencies, you have to have the expertise and understanding complex sites, complex processes, and have the sort of a lot of experience. And I don't think that is out there with a lot of retailers. There's a lot of consultancies out there. They may well be working for other retailers, but the core experience within retailers themselves isn't there. If you look at the associated retailers, they've just carried their knowledge, experience of water efficiency from when they were part of the parent water company, and they're just providing domestic water efficiency services and nothing more than that.
Just want to bring the mic a bit closer to you.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got you. So.
Good.
1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Yeah, you bang on there actually. What I found is from our perspective, with us doing this bill validation and those sorts of things for customers, what we're finding is that a lot of the water retail companies that are set up, the staff who you engage with on customer queries have little or no knowledge. So you got things like, well, what could we have the size of the water meter on the bill? It's a 40 mil meter. What's the size on your records? And they'll say it's about the size of a grapefruit. And what's a grapefruit? Oh, it might be a bit big. It might be the size of a melon. And when you're on having those sorts of conversations with water retailers, kind of thinking, well, I'm not going to get anywhere here. And the expertise on the front line of these water retailers is really sadly lacking.
Well, I was expecting when the retail market opened that expertise, which was with the original water company, when as a consultant I would query issues to do with a bill, that expertise was within the customer service departments of those water companies. And I was expecting that experience, because that's what retail business is about. It's transferring what was in the customer-facing services to do with queries, billing, and meter reading. That would be transferred into the newly formed associated retail business. Well, quite a few of the customer service bureaus, they folded. Now, a lot of those staff were absorbed into the what is now the wholesale business. But there doesn't seem to be the transfer of the expertise into the retail business.
Yeah. It's like with leak detection, isn't it? But years ago, you had guys going around doing leak detection. Bylaw inspectors used to do the leak detection and the bylaw inspections. Now you ring a water company up and say, we've got a leak, and they go, sorry, we can't help you. You have to go onto Google and put in water leak detection. H2O Building Services pops up, but also you've got all these other consultancies. But the skill set with regards to that now is you watch the water companies going around doing leak detection. You've got 2 guys with listening sticks doing soundings on stop taps.
Yeah.
So what is the water retail market delivering to customers then at the moment? And what are the shortfalls?
That's a bit of a question. What should it be
It's
delivering?
your question. I've got it written down here. Look.
Okay, what should it be delivering? Well, the competitive retail market was meant to be open to give customers the freedom to switch to another provider at a cheaper price, usually, or a better level of service. Now, when you looked at the existing water companies, the areas of the services they provided that could be taken out of the statutory businesses were the customer service bureaus, as I said, the customer service contact bureaus, the billing bureaus, the meter services as well, because they weren't controlled under statutory obligations through Ofwat. They could be freely taken out of the water company, and those services provided by the water retailers. Now, if you look at the market at the moment, what is actually being provided by the retailers is a lot more than that. And I just actually question why we have to, as a retailer, have to provide additional services that the old water company didn't do. If you're contacting a retailer at the moment for things like trade effluent applications, allowances, retailers are really obligated to have that expertise in-house, but all that expertise is doing is just shifting on the applications back to the wholesaler, who have the true responsibility and authorisation to clear off those applications. So it's almost as if the retailers at the moment have to provide a level of expertise that they can't really rely upon to give the customer the true response.
And that is additional cost.
Well, yeah.
So
it wasn't part
cost.
of the retail margins that we envisaged could be charged to the customer.
I am really, as an independent consultancy, I'm really sympathetic to the water retail sector for that very case, because the service levels have dipped dramatically. One or two water retailers, dare I say, Yorkshire Water Business, the service has been excellent. I haven't had much dealings with you water at the minute, but I'm sure we will in the future.
Hopefully a good one.
And then we can come on again and discuss how well your service is or not, as the case may be. But Yorkshire Water Business, there's one or two out there, the larger ones. The three largest retailers are failing miserably. And so what we're seeing is general apathy in the market, and then customers aren't engaged. I'm quite happy where I am, etc. But yeah, on the subject of trade effluent, we had about 20 sites for a customer, and they've got a jet wash, so it's plants and machinery that jet wash, and they're subject to trade effluent discharge, albeit maybe 500 cubic metres a year, something like that, but we have to fall into the regulations. And the water retailer concerned is insisting that we go through them, which incidentally is Castle Water. Then they charge us a handsome fee and a margin on top of the wholesale fee for the application, which is Thames Water, and it's something that is about 350. It's knocking on just under £400 now. So that's every year. I find that quite strange that we have to make an application every year for a trade effluent consent. It's not a temporary consent; it's a permanent consent. And I think I queried it with you, and we looked on Thames Water's wholesale charges, and it's actually said that we can make the application direct to Thames Water wholesale, that the wholesaler is insisting no, that's not true, and the retailer is also insisting that we have to go through those. So what's the position? Because I don't know, 20 sites a year, a new application for the same site, it's £2,000, £3,000 a year application fees, and then we got sampling on top of that for a relatively minor discharge for a jet wash. So what's your thoughts on that one?
I think there's a couple of issues to pick up on there. When the market opened, there were there are obviously all of the regional water companies as wholesalers now, and each of those had their own disparate trade effluent application processes. So they all had their own little understandings, interpretations of the Water Industry Regulation, Water Industry Act, and they applied those accordingly in their region, and that's how it existed for decades. when it came to the retail opening, I think it was opened up because retailers have to, and many of them have work across the entire English region, so have to deal with all the wholesalers. They had to be on top of understanding all those different trade effluent application processes and to be able to advise their customers accordingly. And again, that's another issue that we have to be aware of all the different policies out there for every type of issue, contact we have to make with the wholesalers. But at the time of retail opening, there were a series of procedures put in place for the code that allowed the customer, and it is written down, the customer can make the application, trade effluent application itself direct to the wholesaler.
Right.
So I think the first issue is because this was Thames Water had its own unusual interpretation of the Water Industry Act with it applied. I think that's where the issue comes about, that you've had to apply for a consent type that other wholesalers you don't have to apply every year. I think that it's been remedied now, and I think that is what is being recognised in the industry at the moment, that there should be a consolidation of policies out there for all sorts of
standardisation.
Yeah, it's going to be a slow process, and I think what you're seeing there now, because it's changing next year with Thames Water, is an understanding that perhaps they have to change their policy to get in line.
Next year, you can apply direct to Thames Water and cut out Castle. So their fees.
So the question for you is, why has it been done in the past? I think that would have to probably be an appeal you'd have to make through through CC
and we
Water.
shall, as you well know.
Yeah,
That's a lot of money. It's 3 years.
Yeah. But on an ongoing basis for normal consent applications where you should be able to go directly to the wholesaler, I think there was an understanding by wholesalers, retailers last couple of years, and perhaps a misinterpretation of the code, that customers had to go only through the retailer to put their application through. I think I know where that's come about, but I understood that understanding had changed last year, and all wholesalers should allow direct application by the customer. So I don't know what's happening in this particular case, and obviously it's in black and white that the customer can apply directly.
But they're completely. And the thing is, so from your perspective, we've got new regulations, new formats that aren't filtering down to the customer, and the customer's having to fork out more money to do the same job, but shouldn't be doing it that way because certain people in the industry aren't conforming to the agreements that they agreed on applications such as trade effluent. Because not all retailers charge. I mean,
and the mantra in the retail market, is that the retail market should not make the customer any worse off. And you have to look at this particular case you brought up.
We'll discuss that another time, because we could be here all day actually discussing that, couldn't we, on whether or not the customer's better off. I'd say the customer's worse off. I've got another question for you. What is the role of the retailer? I think we've touched on that.
Yeah. In theory, it should replicate what the customer-facing roles were for the retail market. It's the interaction of the customer with the water company as it was. So it's the contact for queries on accounts. It's the issuing of invoices. It's the meter reading services as well. That, in theory, should be what we are replicating in the market, and what we should be charging for on the basis of the cost elements which Ofwat extracted from wholesalers for us to be able to work against. But unfortunately, how it's developed is we're having to provide a lot more services within that cost structure, and it is very, very tight to deliver those services. So that's what we're there effectively to do in a nutshell.
Right, and I think I've got one here. Is how do customers fit into the retail? Not customers, consultants like ourselves. Ta-da!
Well, let's say there's quite a few retailers who can't provide the specialist services that you can do. So I'm sure there's quite a few retailers who retain consultants to deliver water efficiency, service delivery, bill validation, possibly, and some of the more unusual service delivery like water hygiene service delivery.
We're seeing a big increase in water retailers approaching us and asking to work with them on consultancy services, so sort of transferring our expertise and knowledge into their business, which is fine, which is great for us. Not all of them understand the ramifications of that, because reducing costs isn't the only thing, as engineering and consultancy services, as you well know. And it's an industry in its own right, so kind of the likes of you and I are a dying breed, so we need to transfer that knowledge.
But there's no reason why yourselves can't still offer services directly to customers as well, because there's still going to be, well, you're picking up all the time.
Yeah.
There are billing issues that are caused
numerous.
by the retailer, as well as the background
Yeah.
billing issue that's a result of the wholesaler.
Yeah. Well, we sat here a couple of weeks ago with Josh Gudgeon from Get Your Media, and I photocopied some checks face down on here, on this very desk, and the first check I showed him was £250,000, and it looks as though he'd been hit by a brick when he saw that, and that was a claim. A straightforward overcharge, and they're massive, aren't they, some of these claims?
Oh yes, well, even if you remove the retail errors that have to be corrected, there's still the same kind of issues that have been there for decades. That are now tied up with wholesaler tariffs. That are errors that can generate massive refunds.
But there aren't many individuals and organisations that know how to recognise those errors. You do, and I do.
Yeah, not many of us.
Not many of them, and so consequently they continue that billing, and they're racking up huge overcharges. And then when you make an application or you discuss it with the retailer, more recently Water Plus, I have to mention the names on here because we can't pull any punches, as you well know. Otherwise, we're not doing our jobs. And you talk to these guys, and they're completely oblivious. But one thing I will say in support of water retailers, so well, we're billing in accordance with the market. They are bang on correct, but they've got to then appreciate that if we put in an application, say this isn't being charged properly because of X, Y, Z, they need to embrace us and not sort of think, oh my God, here comes another refund payment. They should embrace that, because what we're doing is we're correcting the market data. So it's in actual fact a service that we're providing, working with water retailers to make the market operate better. So this is what we need. There's quite a disconnect between retailers and consultants, and so I kind of think where we say how do water consultants fit into the retail market, that's one good fit. Working with you guys and saying, working and correcting that market data between us so that you can have a smoother operation and then make more money, which is what you're set up to do.
Well, that's perhaps where we are unique compared with most other retailers, where we've got that level of expertise to drill into the market data and see where the errors are on customer sites.
But many haven't, have they?
No, many of them haven't, and you are almost having to hold their hand to guide them through the issues. And also, I think you're probably having to hold their hand over issues that did exist before the market, got corrected, and then they've gone backwards again. Through no fault of the retailer or the customers' fault, but the transfer of data from the wholesaler, from the water company as it was, there's been corruption of data, there's been errors, and have been reintroduced into the market in terms of the tariff codes that are now coming to light again.
Well,
it's been resolved.
Well, we recently been commissioned by a couple of large leisure companies. And the allowances that they had were taken away. Once we dealt with that, which was quite a task, because the water company didn't quite understand what we were trying to get to, we then looked at the charge per cubic metre rate for the wastewater, and that was wrong by their own tariff. So all these sites, and there's hundreds of them, where the wastewater charges are incorrect. Now, that's an incorrect application at the point of transfer the data into CMOS. Yeah,
and I've spotted that. Another issue we've come across is that pre-existing allowances or meter size corrections, where I work with former employees, we corrected meter sizes, or we downsized meters, or we made allowances on sewage charges. We noticed that those haven't been transferred into the market data set. There's been a bit of fudging by some wholesalers and retailers themselves by saying, April the 1st, 2017 was year zero, and so you've got to start again with applications.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure that's correct, and I'm still looking into that. I believe that a lot of the changes that were made, particularly for allowances, that should have been carried over into the retail market. So that's a bit of ongoing work.
We've got one major issue as well now, is that a lot of the swimming pools that we're dealing with, the leisure centres, the trade effort and consents to discharge have disappeared off the face of the planet. They don't exist. And they're paying standard domestic tariffs. Now, from our perspective, there's no way that we're going to apply for trade effort consents where they previously existed. And then what's happening is then the wholesaler is approaching the sites direct and getting them to reapply for a trade effort consent at £200 or £300.
Well, no, it should have existed. Well, if they have to apply for those consents, then there should have been a sign-off of the consent, a cancellation. If they are still existing, those consents,
somewhere,
then there should have been trade effort charges associated with them. You can't just have 1st of April 17 as a cut-off date and everything stops, and everything has to be reapplied.
That appears to be what's been going on. So what's the future for the water retail market then? I was just about to burst out laughing as well.
Quite a few hurdles to get over still. There's been a lot of issues to do with vacant properties where retailers, gap sites. I think it's more in terms of vacant properties where associated water retailers have acquired customers, gone to read the meters and deemed the site as being, the customer as being a vacant property. There's a lot of work to clarify what the definition is of a vacant property, and then to prove whether the property is truly vacant or not. London has a big issue with this. I think the figure is approaching 20-25% of
wow,
we call it properties, SPIDs, are deemed vacant.
So Castle Water perhaps may be thinking, now I shouldn't have bought that.
There is that aspect,
so they bought a huge
but the data
issue.
wasn't perhaps that clear to them when they purchased the
John Reynolds might be thinking about a claim then.
Possibility.
He won't take it on the chin, won't John?
So those vacant properties is one big issue. There is a plan to try and remedy that to ensure that accurate figures of levels of vacant properties are being reported. Another problem is meter readings as well. There's a lot of unread meters that have existed in the market, before the market.
Thousands, tens of thousands, isn't there?
So they're historically imported errors that weren't incorporated actually into. I don't think they've been the cost of those unread meters have been incorporated into the margin that retailers were allowed to work in. So if there's been a lot of unread meters over perhaps even 3-4 years, and those customers were receiving estimated bills, then there was never really an attempt to read those meters, and the cost to go out to read the meter wasn't visible in the margins that were associated with those water companies. So I think the true cost of metering wasn't passed over to the associated retailers or new entrants as well, and it's been truly. I think it's a cost that could well come back to be reviewed and more margin transferred over to the retailers to play with.
So we're still smiling, we're still laughing, we're still carrying on.
I think it's still early. I think it's still too early days, but obviously customers are getting probably frustrated that they can't switch, or there's reasons why they. Don't see that they don't see why they should switch, because they're not going to improve their position if they're only going to save £10-20 a year, when at the back of their minds they may not receive a better level of customer service. It's often it's better the devil you know in some aspects.
Well, what we're saying is now we've got a big campaign going at H2O, switch water supplier now. Because what happens is the bills come in, we correct their data, correct their bills, get all their money back. They save a couple of percent when we've done all that, reduce their costs. Like if we switch to you, to reduce their costs, and everybody's happy. So we're trying to get that engagement, and that's why we're doing these podcasts.
Yeah.
So it's great to see you. I hope we see you again.
Yeah,
I'll send another invite pretty shortly.
If this one goes down okay.
So Nick Buck from your Head of Water Services, thank you very much indeed.
Excellent. Thanks for your time, then.
Cheers, buddy.
Thanks, Graham.
Thank you.
Cheers.